What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of On the Offside. I'm Matt, and I'm joined today by Michael, Colby, and the king of awful takes, Derek. The wait is over. College football is back, and we are so psyched. We actually have meaningful games this week. So we're here to bring you some great predictions and discussions today. Before we get started, anyone got any just preseason thoughts you want to throw out there? Comments, anything like that?
I just can't wait to see how wrong you are with your predictions, Mr. King of Bad Takes.
Derek Lance last week, and I quote, Scott Frost
I knew you were going to mention this.
Coach.
I said he's not that bad. That is literally what I said.
Love it.
Don't pull a onside kick was terrible.
Okay, for our viewers, don't pull a Scott Frost on us. Okay, don't like stay here for the first half of this broadcast and then dip on us the second half. Stay with us the whole thing. Okay, it's going to be worth it. Alrighty, we'll dive right into our topic. So our starting topic for today, folks, I want to talk about our Heisman Trophy predictions. It's the most coveted individual award in college football. Obviously, there's a returning contender or two who were in New York last year for it. What do you guys have? Who's your finalists for it?
I'll go. I just kind of picked who I thought was going to win it. A part of me wants to say Bryce Young. I think he's just going to do so well, but you don't normally see someone win the Heisman again. I hate to say it, but I'm just gonna predict C.J. Stroud. I think Ohio State's honestly going to have a pretty good year, unfortunately. Basically based off the fact that Bryce, like I said, I would not be shocked if Bryce Young, but I don't know if has that happened to like win the Heisman twice.
Yeah, there's been one.
Okay.
Don't go over my take.
It's just rare. But for me, CJ Stroud, that's just who I'm going to pick. Yeah. But again, Bryce Young, I think it comes down between those two.
All right. Yeah. I'm actually on the Bryce Young train. It's not a sexy pick by any means. I could reel you off the stats or whatnot, but I'm going to go with an outsider just for fun, Malik Cunningham from Louisville. And I feel like not a lot of people know Malik Cunningham, kind of a group of 5 conference guy, but dude put up stupid numbers last year out of Louisville. I don't even know if he's there on many betting things, but we've seen what Teddy Two Gloves and Lamar can do at Louisville. Dude put up over 1,000 rushing yards as a quarterback. I think he went let's see here, 19-6 TD INT ratio, pretty solid. But that's just my dark horse. If I had to say, I'd go the boring answer with Bryce Young.
So Malik Cunningham is preseason ranked like 17th in the Heisman odds. So at least you got a guy that's kind of on the board. I mean, but who is the last player? This was my whole thing, but you guys already touched on. Who is the last player to win back-to-back Heisman trophies? Archie Griffin. We already talked about it. In 1974 and 1975. That is the last player to win back-to-back Heisman trophies. But let me tell you about this guy, Bryce Young. The dude is a stud. There's a reason he won the Heisman Trophy last year. Absolute cannon for an arm. And that is why C.J. Stroud is going to win the Heisman Trophy this year. And it's not necessarily Bryce Young's fault. My reasoning has more to do with who is coming back for Ohio State and who they've got coming back at receiver, because they've got Jackson Smith and Jiba, if that's how you say his name, Marvin Harrison Jr. If you look at Alabama's leading receiver from last year that's coming back, it's Cameron Leatu, their tight end. So it's not a knock on Bryce Young. It's just I think that the supporting cast that C.J. Stroud has with him is going to be why he wins this award. I mean, he threw 6 passing touchdowns in the Rose Bowl, and both of those receivers are back this year. So that's why I'm going with C.J. Stroud.
He lost 2 first-round picks.
He did.
and still has 2 animals at wide receiver coming back.
Okay.
All righty. So I have mine. Who I think is the easy pick is Bryce Young. You know, like Derek said, he won it last year. He's got a good chance to win it this year. I have my likely pick, but not my actual pick. So my likely pick, I think one of these two names could easily win it. That being C.J. Stroud, and who I picked last year to win it, Bijan Robinson from Texas. Now it's going to be tough for a running back to win it, but he does kind of have that going for him. He's probably going to be one of the only running backs in consideration for it. But then my actual pick, Heisman Trophy winner, Caleb Williams, USC transfer, Lincoln Riley, just uses the weapon he has, and has the benefit of playing in a conference that's not going to give him as much competition as a place like the SEC or even the Big Ten. So, yep, Caleb Williams gets my bet on that one. Alrighty, now as far as team awards, it all comes down to the playoffs. You either make it or you don't. You either win the Natty or, like Bama last year, you don't. So without further ado, I want to hear your all's 4 playoff teams and who you've got winning it all. Let's start reverse order this time. Derek, you go ahead.
All right. So I feel like this is a very tough year to predict the 4 teams. I feel like, normally you can say Clemson, Oklahoma. There's a lot of, turnover and things going on there. Clemson wasn't that great last year. So I'm going to go ahead and knock 1 and 2 out because that seems very easy to do. Number 1, Bama. Number 2, Ohio State. I feel like that's probably going to be pretty synonymous across this podcast. Maybe you flip the order, maybe you don't. But those 2 teams are probably going to be at least in the playoff. I feel pretty confident about that. I had to dig a little bit deeper to come up with the 3rd and 4th pick. And I don't think that the SEC gets 2 teams this year. And so that's kind of the reason why I went away from a second SEC team. I think Georgia lost too much from last year, 15 draft picks, NFL record. So for my 3 seed, I have Utah. And for my 4 seed, I actually have Baylor. I think Dave Aranda's the real deal. And he took over that program in 2020. They went 2-7. Last year, they took a huge leap forward, won the Big 12 for what that's worth. But then they won. They were 12-2 last year. So I think it's very impressive. I think it's a program that's going to do very well in a conference that doesn't have a lot of competition. And there they are.
Yeah. I hate when I have to agree with Derek. It kind of hurts a little bit. So for me, yes, Bama, Ohio State, and I have Baylor, and I've got USC going. I just kind of feel like, with Caleb Williams there, something magical could happen. Not a very tough schedule, but I know Derek already harped on it. Dave Aranda at Baylor, love what he's doing. He was great at LSU. I know it kind of gets overshadowed with that offense, but that defense that he had was great. Love what he's doing there. And without Lincoln Riley in the Big 12, I feel like Baylor can make a lot of moves. They beat OK State in the Big 12 championship last year. And I really feel like they can build off that. And, with the Big 12 being down, I really see them making moves, and they don't really have a whole lot of competition. Texas isn't ready yet. We'll see, but, until they prove it, I don't think they're ready. But, yeah, so definitely Bama, Ohio State, USC, Baylor.
Michael, who you got?
So mine, Alabama, Ohio State, number 1 and number 2 is who I have. I just think that this year they're just kind of the obvious. I feel like we're all going to be pretty similar on that. Colby, Derek, it's interesting that you all mentioned Baylor because they're a team that I have sitting right there too. But even despite losing the quarterback wise, I was looking at they'd got a transfer in. I'm going to say Oklahoma. But I do think it's going to become between those 2 in that division. So, and I do agree. I don't think a second SEC team makes it this year. And this 4th pick hurts me. I hate to even say it. and I guess it's going to come down to where if there's just one of the Power 5 like conferences can't like have another one there to get over them. I think Notre Dame is going to lose to Ohio State, and it's going to be their big significant loss. And then I think they're going to beat Clemson because I think Clemson's going to still be struggling. And even though a lot of them haven't, I've seen a lot of things that had them predicted to be in the top 4, but I think Clemson's still going to struggle. And Notre Dame's going to count that as like one of their big wins. So that's their 2 big games on their little like powder puff schedule they're going to have. But as they do always, and they're not going to have to play a conference game, which I think is absolutely crap. Until they get in a conference, they shouldn't deserve to ever be there. But I think they're going to sneak their way in and then get blown out. So there it is. Bama, OSU, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, first team out. Okay.
All righty. Some good takes there, fellas. I've got Vanderbilt, Wake Forest. Oh, wrong list. Freaking. Just kidding. No, I've got Bama, Ohio State 1 and 2, that order. Bama, I think, goes undefeated this year. Ohio State, I'm picking them to lose like an early game, probably Wisconsin week 4. But then they're going to leave no doubt the rest of the year and usually see at least one loss team get into the playoffs. My 3 pick is kind of my surprise pick and the one that will inevitably come back to bite me. I've got NC State winning the ACC, going undefeated, and getting the 3 spot just because of strength of schedule for Ohio State being better than theirs. And then with the 4th pick, I've got Oklahoma, winner of the Big 12. Big 12 for me is really a toss-up. I think you have probably a few teams, 3 or 4, that are solid, but not somebody that's, as good as Ohio State or Bama. You got Texas, Baylor, Oklahoma. You've got these teams that definitely could give you a run. Could go to any one of them. So we'll see, but I can't wait to find out. Hopefully I'll get to see my team in there. Speaking of my team, how y'all think they're going to do this year? Michael, what's your thoughts for them?
So obviously got Bama in the playoffs, so I think they're going to do well. I got a prediction on their regular season schedule. I'm going to say 11-1. My reasoning for it is some games to watch from A&M, Ole Miss, Auburn, and LSU. I think one of the – I don't know that LSU will do anything. I know they play at LSU, and it's just Bama's type of rival, just like Auburn is. I just think out of those games, they're going to slip up once. And not affect – I think they win the SEC championship. I don't think it affects that. I think they honestly just in the playoffs as a number 1 seed. I don't see anything being affected. I think 11-1 season there for Bama.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm 100% with Michael on that one. I got them at 11-1, and I think they slip up one of those 3 matchups. LSU, Alabama is my favorite game of the season. Every year it just seems to be exciting, but A&M solid. Ole Miss could do something. LSU, not really sure they're there. Don't like Brian Kelly, but I just feel like they slip up at least. But 11-1, they take the SEC championship. They'll be fine.
All right, I know this is the take everybody's been waiting for. Yeah. Alabama. I'm not holding a pen. Alabama will go undefeated during the regular season. Ooh. I think of the matchups everybody's talking about. Don't like Brian Kelly. It's going to take him a little bit of time to adjust some things there. I think Alabama is going to be so upset after the A&M game last year. They're going to take care of business there. And then what was the other game you guys talked about?
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss. I think Jackson Dart's good, but I don't think he's Matt Corral. So I just think Alabama goes undefeated. I think they're 12-0. I think they're the bona fide 1 seed in the playoff. I don't think they win it all, but I do think that this regular season, I think, is kind of what did Saban call it, a down year at 11-1 or a rebuilding year, and they're still 11-1 going to the national championship game. So yeah, Matt's very spoiled. But anyways, I think they're good. I think it's a revenge tour when they play A&M, and I think they'll go undefeated this year, regular season.
Alrighty. Well, we've had some good discussion. I think the things that'll characterize Bama, I do think they go undefeated in the regular season, in spite of Brian Kelly and the family he's built at LSU. I don't see him beating Bama this year. We'll give
Was
it a
he in
few.
Savannah? That was real. That was real.
I don't know. I mean, that's just what I hear when I hear him talk now. Thank you all for welcoming my family. Anyway, I think Bama goes undefeated in the regular season. I'm hoping they absolutely trounce A&M, but I'm definitely going to be very nervous for that game. I think Bama's going to have a dominant defense. They'll have the best edge rush in college football. I think their secondary will be okay, but I think, like in previous years, they'll be prone to giving up the deep pass. Offensively, expecting things to be pretty sound. They're going to have a much better rushing attack this year. Little nervous for the wide receivers. Derek touched on that a little bit. Obviously, they lost 2 1,000-yard receivers to the NFL draft. I did see they have freshman Kobe Prentice starting as one of their wide receivers. So whoever said freshmen can't play at Bama, they just were sour grapes there. So, but yeah, that's what I think about Bama. Anything short of a national championship, it's going to be a disappointment. It's the way they do things. So trust the process. Then on the flip side of the coin, we transfer over to the team where it has felt like 98 for 24 years now, but without the hardware to show for it. Tennessee outlook. I'll take the lead on this one. I'll go first because I have a story I want to tell y'all. Okay, when I look at Tennessee's outlook for the season, I've got my Jekyll outlook and I've got my Hyde outlook. Okay, so for those of you familiar with classic literature, we got kind of two different sides of the coin here. The Jekyll side for Tennessee, and I wrote this down. So Tennessee finishes the season with a record of 8-4, losing to Bama, Georgia, and 2 of the following 4 teams: LSU, Florida, Pitt, and UK. A couple of top 25 wins boost the morale of the fan base, backing Heupel even more. TN goes on to win a respectable bowl game, vying for second place in the SEC East. And now, the Hyde outlook. Tennessee starts out the season with a rough 2-4, losses to Pitt, Florida, LSU, and Bama. Hendon Hooker is benched, and Milton takes back over as starting QB. They surge back, beating Kentucky, losing a close game to Georgia, but then they suffer a heartbreaker at the hands of South Carolina to finish the 6-6 regular season. With Neyland in disarray, Josh Heupel's name is officially on the hot seat. And then, if you'll imagine things for a moment, the screen fades, and then there's a post-credits scene, okay? And it shows Butch Jones at his local bank. And they're discussing with him how, due to the boatload of cash UT had to pay him during his buyout, the bank is now being named after him. And then a lonesome UT fan stands outside the building with a tear-stained face, longing again for the days of the great Butch Jones. Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, Derek, let's go straight to you, man. What you got?
That's tough to follow. That's really tough to follow. I mean, you really painted a picture there. So I kind of actually did a similar thing without the imagery, the Jekyll and Hyde type scenario. I think the absolute ceiling for Tennessee is 10 wins. I don't think it's going to happen. I think that is the absolute ceiling. Alabama and Georgia losses, like those are losses. When you look at the schedule, I think that the wins that should be wins this year, and this is me as a Tennessee fan, I felt like 98 for however long. To tell you how long it's been, that last national championship I used to rewatch on VHS. But the wins that should be locks are Ball State, Akron, UT Martin, Missouri, and obviously Vanderbilt. So that's 5 at the very minimum. And then, so we beat South Carolina 45-20 last year. We took it to South Carolina. Feel confident that that's a win. Beat Kentucky at Ford Field or Kroger Field. Again, I hate that they're named after a grocery store. But anyways, we should be able to beat Kentucky again. And then this should be a prime opportunity to beat Florida. It's been a long time since we beat Florida. Now, realistically, what do I think is going to happen? I think Tennessee is going to beat Florida and end up winning 8 games. And I think that's fine. I think that's what's going to end up happening. I could see us losing to like Pitt and LSU and obviously Bama, Georgia. But if we win 8 regular season games and go win a bowl game, I'm going to be very pleased as a fan. And as long as we can beat Florida, just please, for the love of everything, beat Florida. We're at home. It's our time. So.
All right. First off, huge shout out to Matt. That's some of the best fan fiction I've ever heard in my life. I mean,
It's C-minus work.
Based on a true story.
You painted a picture. It was beautiful. Just beautiful. But all right, so I'm gonna go 7-5. Initially, whenever we first started talking about this, I had 8-4 down. And I have learned as a UT fan to bank on a loss that you don't expect. That's just the way it goes. So 8-4 seems like the right answer, but I just feel like there's going to be something there. Yeah, maybe I'm just a little pessimistic, but I feel like they're going to lose something that they shouldn't lose. Sometimes I account for them winning a game that they probably shouldn't win, but I don't know. I just see one of those kind of Vanderbilt, South Carolina, just games, they think's in the bag. Go ahead.
Don't say Vanderbilt. If you want to say South Carolina, that's fine.
Fair enough.
Vanderbilt lost to ETSU last year. Shout out Bucks.
Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.
But they did lose to ETSU, and just saying, 2 different calibers.
And it wasn't even close. I mean, it was what, like 24-3, or it was something bad.
It was a solid win.
Yeah. ETSU has a lethal offense, but they did. But yeah, I'm not gonna hold you guys up. 7-5 just seems standard. Like, I don't think many people are gonna be upset about it. 8-4 probably seems like what it should be, but the pessimistic approach, 7-5, I don't think anybody's gonna be upset about.
So, as a young child who's been a Tennessee fan their entire life and has experienced all these things, and in my heart, I know there's somewhere there's going to be a loss. Probably shouldn't happen. And Colby, you are right. Derek, you're also right about the ceiling being like 10 wins, I believe. Not impossible. But I also know for the first time in a little while, there's a little bit of hope to look forward to football season. Went through a lot of errors from, Butch Jones, just everybody we've been through lately. And I do think Heupel's a good coach. And statistically on paper, our offense should be very good this year. So I'm going to go with the optimistic approach and say that Tennessee goes 9-3.
Okay.
And I don't know that in my heart that I really truly believe that's going to happen, but I got to be optimistic. Kentucky's playing us that is one of the, and Matt, it's funny that you mentioned some of those teams is literally who I was thinking are some teams that would be like the Florida, Kentucky, those teams that are dangerous for us to lose to, on any given year. Being in Knoxville, Kentucky, I just want to point this out there. Kentucky has beat Tennessee in Knoxville once in my entire life, and I am 32 years old. They play every year. So I just want to add that in there. I'm not saying that it might be 2 after this year, but it has been once. That is their place that they go to lose games. So I'm hoping that trend continues. I think Florida is down. This is a time to do it if we're going to do it. But I also know how Tennessee, on the flip side of that, is to Florida. So I could see that being one of the games we drop, or LSU before the Bama game. And I could see it be a total dumpster fire because that's what I'm used to. So that's what – but I really do think there is some optimism to the team. So I'm going to be a little bit more optimistic on this point. So, yeah, 9-3. Matt, I do have one question. If they are killing it and they are undefeated going into the Bama game and both – I don't think that that's going to happen. I think Bama will definitely win that football game. But if both teams are undefeated and that offense is really just killing it, is there a little bit of nerve before the game than just an automatic win?
As someone who has a valid passport and assets in offshore bank accounts all across the world, I'm not worried at all. Worst comes to worst, I leave the country and I go to my my home in Guatemala. But I've been meaning to visit there, so it wouldn't be the worst thing. No, on a serious note,
Georgia and Bama, but yeah.
And if and when the day comes where Tennessee beats Alabama, I will be MIA for quite a while. So yeah, we've got our outlooks for our teams there, and we'll see who lives up to expectations. I know I never have. Speaking of which, you all tell me your underachiever and your overachiever for college football this year. It can be a coach, it can be a player, it can be a team. Whatever you got, throw it at me.
We go this time?
Yeah, go for it.
Went first. So my underachiever, I'm going to start with. I'm going to do a team, and you're probably going to know where I'm going to go with this pretty quick. I think I'm going to go with Georgia. Last year's champion. They got their quarterback back. There's some, expectations from Georgia fans, I'm sure. The problem is you lost so much of your defense. And I know Georgia recruits well. They're going to have some reloading. But it's going to take some time to adjust from what that amazing defense they had last year. And I've said it before on a podcast we had, Stetson Bennett for me is not the dude. And I just don't think he's able to lead them to without that kind of defense to what their expectations are going to be. I'm not saying Georgia's going to have a bad season. I mean, I literally said they probably will, they'll beat Tennessee, but and so I'm not down in Georgia, but I just don't think they're going to have the expectation of what their fans are expecting. Another team I could add to that, but I'm not going to right now. So, but anyway.
Who's your overachiever?
My overachiever is, and I want to go with someone with Tennessee, just being a Tennessee fan. So, but I think Jalen Hyatt's going to have a big year. Receiver for him, he's fast. That team likes to throw a lot. Showed some moments last year. I don't think not that he's. I don't know if he's been Tennessee's leading receiver, but I just expect overachieving from what he's expected to do this year. I think he's really going to step up and be a big asset to that offense.
Okay.
All right. So I've actually, it wasn't on my list, but what Michael said about Georgia makes a heck of a lot of sense. Arguably the best defensive team, we've seen. I'm not going to go with them, but that is a heck of a point. So underachiever, and this isn't much of a shock. In a year, my mom could pick the, underachiever, and it's probably Notre Dame. So I'm gonna cast them in that category, but I'm gonna throw in Clemson as well. And it's probably not much of a shock. They kind of had a down year last year, but I don't think DJ's that dude. You had Deshaun and you had actually Boyd as well, but it's just they don't have that guy anymore. And I felt, having Lawrence Watson for what was it, a 4 or 5 year span. I can't remember, but
maybe even 6. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, you're comfortable. You had a good enough defense, good enough weapons, but I just don't think DJ's that guy. I don't think he's that bell cow or anything like that. So, I mean, just looking at the rankings, I mean, I think I've seen them in the top 4, top 5. I don't even see them in the top 50 by the end of the year. But as far as overachiever, this kind of echoes off of what I said earlier with Baylor, but Blake Shapen. I know it's not much of a name. Didn't even play in a bowl game last year, but he was the quarterback for the Big 12 championship.
Blake who?
Exactly. And he's a baseball guy, which makes me love him more. But he was a freshman last year, and he had to start kind of like emergency start in the Big 12 championship, and he lit it up. He really lit it up, and I think Baylor's going to be a team. You saw me pick them, in the playoff, but I think he's a guy that's going to surprise a lot of people. So that's going to be my overachiever.
All right. Here's my overachiever, and it is Ole Miss. And not to say that they're going to go beat Alabama or anything, but preseason they're ranked behind Kentucky and Arkansas. And I think they have a better season than what they're being given credit for. So they had transfers of Jackson Dart, Malik Heath, and Michael Trigg. So Heath came from Mississippi State. Trigg came from USC. Trigg was the number 3 tight end in the country that signed last year. So I just think with Lane Kiffin in that offense, getting a lot of good transfers in, I think they'll be better than those teams. I'm not saying that they're going to be a top 10 team in the country, but when you're ranked by, I think they'll have a better season than Arkansas and Kentucky is kind of what I'm getting at. Now, my underachiever, I literally wrote down, of course, Notre Dame. That is literally what I wrote down. Of course, Notre Dame. But I've got something a little bit deeper here. The Pittsburgh Panthers. I think there is a 0% chance that they finish the season ranked as top 16 or higher. Obviously, they lost Kenny Pickett. But here's another thing that nobody talks about. Everybody just talks about Pickett graduating. But their number 1 wide receiver from last year is Jordan Addison, and he transferred to USC. He had 1,593 yards receiving and 17 touchdowns, and he is gone. Also, I'm not a big fan of Pat Narduzzi. I don't think he's that great of a head coach. The most wins he had ever had at Pitt from like 2016 up until now was 8. So I think they had lightning in a bottle for one season. I don't think that's really that great of a program. And I think they're vastly overrated considering what they lost from last year.
Bring back Dave Wanstead.
Yeah. By the way, go West Virginia Thursday.
My mic's muted. All right, some good takes, folks. I've got as my overachiever Billy Napier, Florida's new head coach. I think he's going to bring Florida back to contention for the SEC East, aided by a down year from Georgia. That's really all I'll say on that. And then for my underachiever, Colby touched on it. I got Clemson. I really think Clemson drops about 5 games this year. Yeah, DJ Uiagalelei. There we go. Got my name pronunciation in for the day. His QB woes, I see him continuing. He's a big guy, and that's about it. That's all he showed last year. He's a big guy. Big guys don't win games. But yeah, that's my over and underachievers. So I think that about wraps up our discussion. I know we are all so freaking hyped for football to be back. This is the best time of year. If you aren't pumped for this, something's wrong with you. You can change. You can do better, but it's time to bring out the wings, bring out the beer, sit on the couch and watch college football all day, and let's go. It is literally the best time of the year. I'm getting hyped just thinking about it. So I'll let these guys share any closing remarks we have.
Just sounds like a really productive Saturday to me.
Salute.
Salute.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you know what I'm gonna be doing Saturday. So first big Saturday with some I know it started this past, but we got big games going on Saturday. It's really officially into it. Of course, tomorrow night, as a UT fan, be watching that game. So that season's kicking off early. So just hot, man. Just ready for it.
Yeah.
Good to be back.
Go Vols.
I feel like requesting like a Monday off next week. I don't know if my boss will do it, but it seems right. Like I'm too hyped for football to come back. Like it's the time of year, hands down. You know, Saturdays, Sundays, we'll get to the NFL. That's my cup of tea. But even on Saturdays, it's beautiful.
Hold on, I've got a good little piece of news for you. Monday's Labor Day. So, I mean, my office is closed. I don't know about your all's. So, I mean, it's a football weekend, folks.
Oh, I got banking hours, baby. We're good.
Yeah, it's Labor Day. So, I mean,
Right. Not only do we have meaningful college football back, we've got a 3-day weekend, folks. Yeah. Enjoy it. This is perfect right here. It doesn't get better than this.
We should have just led with that. Hello, everyone. We've got a 3-day weekend.
This is a public service announcement. Yeah. All righty, folks. But I think that'll wrap up our podcast for today. Remember to like this video. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, all that fun stuff. Talk with us in the comments. We love to hear what you all want us to do, what you want us to talk about. We love that interaction with you all. So football's back. We'll see y'all next time.
Peace.